Okay, kiddos, I don't know what happened there. Sorry, some of this got cut off. I believe at the last video it stopped right around here on number 5. If you go ahead and look, these should have been your answers for 6, 7, and 8 when you would have gone through and multiplied. On this last part here, -2 times 18 is going to give you a -36. And then x to the 4th on, this should, by the way, should have been x to the 5th. And then x to the 4th right there. Okay, so go back through, make sure your videos, your notes are correct and everything looks good there. So now what we're going to do is we're going to have 2 variables involved here. So when there's 2 variables involved, you can still only put my p's with my p's and my q's with my q's on this next one, or my x's with my x's and my y's with my y's. You can only use the same variables there. So I'm still going to distribute the whole term here to this one, but I can only take p squared times p to the 5th to get me p to the 7th. And I can only take q cubed times q squared to get me q to the 5th. So that gets me my first term of p to the 7th times q to the 5th. And then I distribute that last term there. P squared times p is going to give me p cubed. Q cubed times q is going to get me q to the 4th. So notice it's in alphabetical order and in order from least to greatest on the exponent. So you're definitely going to want to watch for that. Okay? Well, now let's do it with 2 variables and a number. So then on here, I have 3xy times x squared. Well, I just have 3 because it's technically times a 1. X times x squared is going to give me x cubed. And then y times, there's no other y there, so I'm just going to write y right back there. Okay? Now, I'm going to multiply the next term. Well, again, 3 times 1 is 3. X times x is x squared. And y times y is y squared. Well, now you might be thinking, well, I have y with a 1 here and y squared here. Remember, it has to go in order from alphabetical order first. So x cubed, x squared, that's in alphabetical order and numerical order, so that's why this is in this order. And then we're going to end off with a plus 3x, because I don't have anything to multiply my 3 and my x by on this last one, but then I have y times y squared, which gets me y cubed. So that's going to be my final answer. Okay? What I want you guys to do now is I want you to pause the video and I want you to try these 4 problems here, okay? Challenge yourself a little bit. Don't just copy the answers down. Challenge yourself and see if you can get those. Okay, now that we have challenged ourselves a little bit, what we should have gotten for an answer on this first one was you should have gotten -10 r to the 4th s squared, because there's nothing to multiply by the s in that first term. So that just stayed the same. My next one, then, you should have gotten plus 15 r cubed, and then s squared times s is also going to give me s cubed. Finally, by that last term, 5 times -4 is going to give me -20. Nothing to multiply my r's by, so it's just r squared. S squared times s squared is going to give me s to the 4th. So that's what you should have gotten in that answer. Okay? If you're like, yep, I understand what we're doing, you guys can jump ahead and start our video back up on number 15. Otherwise, you can go ahead and keep watching. So on number 12, when you distribute, you should have gotten 12a cubed b minus 21a b to the 4th. Okay, we have a lot going on number 13 here. So on number 13, you should have gotten -7 times 9 to get -63. C cubed times c squared gets me c to the 5th. D squared times d squared gets me d to the 4th. Okay, and then I'm going to subtract, or possibly actually add now, because -7 times -4 gets me a positive 28. And then I'm going to get c to the 4th. And then d to the 7th. Okay? Remember, the biggest thing here is it has to go in alphabetical order. So that's why my c's are first, and those are in order from least to greatest. Don't let that confuse you, because this is d to the 4th and this is d to the 7th. It always has to go in alphabetical order before it goes in numerical order. Okay, now I'm going to go through on number 14. What you should have gotten was negative 20, m to the 5th, n to the 4th, plus 30, m to the 4th, and n squared. So that is how we are multiplying a monomial by a polynomial. So what it means is we're multiplying one single term by multiple terms there. Okay, well now when we go ahead, our next thing here is it says distribute, then simplify the remaining expression. Final answer must be in standard form. So what we're going to have is we're going to have a monomial being multiplied by a polynomial. So I'm going to have negative 2x times 3x times negative 4. So I'm going to make sure I go ahead and do that. That's going to get me negative 6x squared plus 8x plus 7x. So now that I multiplied, all I did was I brought that 7x down because it wasn't in my parentheses. Remember with our monkey arms, we only multiply the stuff that is in those parentheses. So now I'm going to combine those like terms because I need to make sure it's in standard form and as simplified as possible. I'm going to get negative 6x squared plus 15x. And that would be my final answer there. Okay. Now that we've seen an example where we have one thing we're going to multiply, number 16, we're going to multiply and use monkey arms twice. So I'm going to take this 5w and multiply it by the two things in the parenthesis right in front of it, right behind it. And then I'm going to take a negative 2w, because there's a minus sign in front that makes it negative, by the two terms on the inside of the parenthesis that's in front of. So my first parenthesis is going to give me negative 35w squared plus 15w. I'm going to get negative 2w times 13. That's going to give me a negative 26w. And then I have negative 2w times negative 9w squared. That's going to give me a positive 18w cubed. So I'm going to go through. I want to write this in order from least to greatest. And I want to make sure I'm simplifying all my like terms. Well, I see in my exponents, I have the highest exponent of a cubed. So that's going to be my first term. So I'm going to have 18w cubed. Then I see I have a squared. So that's my next term. So minus 35w squared, since it's a negative. And then I see I can combine these two together because they're just w. So 15w minus 26w is going to get me a negative 11w. And that's my final answer there. Okay, so here's what I want you guys to do next. On the back here, what I would want you to do if you're like, okay, I feel pretty confident, I want you to skip ahead in the notes to number 21. Okay, you can skip 17, 18, 19, and 20. I am going to go through those, but you can skip ahead to 21 if you would like. Okay, sorry, that's shaking there. Now we see we have two things that we have to multiply. Then we have a term on the end that we have to simplify. So we really have to make sure that we're being really careful and diligent here. So when I distribute, I'm going to get y times y and y times 4. So I'm going to get y squared plus 4y. So I have that distribution done. Now I have negative y times y and negative y times negative 3. So I'm going to get minus y squared plus 3y. Now I'm not going to multiply this guy on the end by anything because he's not in a parenthesis. So now I just add that minus y at the end. Now I go ahead and I'm going to distribute. Okay? Well, I notice that my highest exponent is a 2. Okay? Well, I have a y squared minus y squared. Well, what happens is those two things cancel each other out. Okay? Now all I have left is I have 4y plus 3y. Okay, that's going to give me 7y. And then I minus 9y to get me a negative 2y. And that's my final answer there. Okay. So that's what we have going on there. Now on number 18, I have the same thing, but I have two multiplications where one of them is multiplying by a trinomial. So I'm going to multiply that 6x. So 6x times 2x is going to get me 12x squared. 6x times negative 3 is going to get me a minus 18x. I have minus 5 times 2x, which is going to get me a negative 10x squared. Minus 5 times 9, which is going to get me a minus 45x. And then minus 5 times negative 3, which gets me a positive 15. Okay, I'm going to go through now, and I'm going to look to see what can I combine and make sure I put it in order from least to, or highest to greatest to least in order with my exponents. Okay, so I have a squared. Well, I have 12x squared minus 10x squared. That's going to get me a 2x squared. Then I have an x, so I have negative 18x minus 45x, and that's going to get me a negative 63x. And then I don't have anything to combine with that 15, so it's just a plus 15. Okay, now that's going to be my final answer there. Okay? So that's what we have going on there. I'm going to give you the answers for 19 and 20 if you want to go ahead and do those on your own, but you don't have to. When you go and do those by yourselves, you should have gotten 5x squared y squared plus 12xy minus 6, and that would have been your final answer. That's in order and standard form after multiplying and rearranging. And then for 20, you should have gotten 9m squared plus 3m minus 12. Okay, so that would have been your answer there. And now we see we have lots of things going on number 21 through 24. So on number 21 here, we have 3 multiplications before we can start simplifying. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to multiply 3v times 7v to get 21v squared. 3v times negative 2 to get me negative 6v. 3 times v squared to get plus 3v squared, because I'm just going to keep moving down the line. 3 times 2v to get me 6v. And then 3 times 1 to get me a plus 3. Okay, now we're on to our last thing that we're multiplying by. So I have that negative 3v. Remember, whenever it's negative, I like to circle it to make sure that we don't have anything going on there. And we don't miss that negative. So I have negative 3v times negative 5v. That's going to get me a plus 15v squared. I have negative 3v times 3, so I get a negative 9v. Okay, now that I have this all going on, I need to look at what I have that's alike. Well, my highest exponent is a squared, so I'm going to take 21v squared plus 3v squared plus 15v squared. When I do that, that's going to get me a 39v squared. Okay, now that that's done, I look to see at my v's, and I have negative 6v. Then I have plus 6v. So those two things cancel each other out because that gives me 0. And then I just have a minus 9v left. That gets me a minus 9v. Then the only thing that I have left is that plus 3, so I just write plus 3 at the end. Now this is in order from highest to lowest exponent, and that's going to be my final answer there. Okay, now we have a few more things going on number 22. Okay, on 22, what I'm going to have us do is I am going to have us figure out what we are going to do with this first one, the second one, and then we have this last term here. So I want you to be thinking about that on your own right now. So if I'm looking at this, my first step should be working with this first monomial times this trinomial. So I'm going to distribute that 4x squared. That should go there. So I'm going to get 8x to the 4th, because x squared times x squared is x to the 4th, plus 4x cubed minus 20, because 5 times 4 is 20, and it's a negative 5, x squared. So that one's done. Now we do the same thing with my next one. Multiply by that negative x. I'm going to get minus x to the 4th minus 5x cubed, and then plus 3x. Okay, I don't have anything to multiply on that end with that 17, so it's just plus 17. Okay, now that I have that going on, I'm going to figure out what's my highest term. Well, my highest term in exponent would be x to the fourth. So I have 8x to the fourth there, and then I have a minus x fourth there. Well, when I do that, that's going to get me a 7x to the fourth. Okay, now I look at my cubes. I have 4x cubed minus 5x cubed. Well, that's going to get me a minus x cubed. Now I have x squared. Well, this is my only term for x squared, so I just write that down below here. I have 20x squared. Then finally, my last two terms, I don't have anything else with just an x on it, so I write plus 3x. And then I don't have anything else that's just a number, so this is just plus 17. So there we go. That is my final answer on that one. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is I want you to pause the video right now and I want you to work on number 23. Okay, on number 23, I want you to work on it on your own and then press play to continue the video on. Okay, now that you've continued this video on, you should have gotten negative 2r times r cubed to get negative 2r to the fourth. Negative 2r times negative 6r gets me a plus 12r cubed. And then negative 2r times 6 to get me a minus 12r. Okay? This guy in the middle here is not touching anybody. He is not right outside of parentheses. He's not doing anything. But what is right outside the parentheses is this minus sign. So knowing that, I'm going to distribute that minus sign. And we know when we're distributing a minus sign, we're actually distributing a negative 1. So that turns this into, I'm going to write that plus 4r cubed so I don't forget. But it's going to turn it into a minus 5r to the fourth minus 10r. So you can't forget, when you have that minus sign out front, you are just distributing that minus sign. That turns into a negative 1, and that's all you're distributing. Now what we have going on here is we need to figure out what's my highest exponent. Well, my highest exponent I see is a fourth. So I have negative 2r to the fourth, and I have a negative 5r to the fourth. Well, when I go ahead and combine those, that's going to get me a negative 7r to the fourth. Okay? Then I look for my r cubed. Well, I have 12r cubed plus 4r cubed. That's going to get me 16r cubed. Then I have negative 12r minus 10r, and that's going to get me a minus 22r. Okay, so there is that. So if you are good to go, you can stop and you can go right ahead to the homework. Maybe skip to the end so you can listen to see which problems I have you skip. But before that, I'm going to have us talk about a challenge question that we might encounter on a quiz. And so this challenge question would be number 24, because we're going to skip geometric applications today. So on 24, I see I have square parentheses and I have those round curved parentheses. Well, what that means is I have parentheses inside parentheses. So I have distributing before I can even move on to distribute that 4b. Well, what this means here is I have this negative 5 that I need to distribute to this 3ab and this b squared. So I'm going to have then, that's going to leave me with 4b times, inside my parentheses, I'm still going to have a 2a squared, but now I'm going to have a minus 15ab, and then I'm going to have a plus 10b squared. That's going to be inside those parentheses, and that's going to be added to 29ab squared. Now that I've done those inside parentheses, now I need to work on my outside parentheses, and that's going to get me 4b times 2a squared, so I'm going to get 8a squared b, 4b times negative 15ab, which is going to get me a negative 60ab squared, and then I have 4b times 10b squared, which is going to get me a plus 40 b cubed. And that's going to be plus 29b squared. ab squared, sorry. Okay. Now what we have going on is we need to simplify and combine our like terms. Remember, it goes in alphabetical order. So I need to look at my a exponents. Well, I see that I have an 8a squared there. So that's what's going to start me off on my final answer. I'm going to have 8a squared b. Now that I'm done with that, my next ones with my a's is this negative 60ab squared and this 29ab squared. Those are the same variables and exponents. Well, negative 60 plus 29 is going to get me a minus 31ab squared. And then I don't have anything else. It's just that b cubed. So then it's plus 40b cubed. And that's your final answer. Okay. On today's assignment, what I want you guys to complete is I want you to complete all of the odd numbers. So you're just doing the odd numbers, but then you are skipping number 20 as well. I guess it's an even number, so you don't need to worry about that one, but that's that geometric application. So on your assignment, I just want you doing the odd numbers. If you have any questions, just message me and we can pop on video chat. I hope you guys are staying safe during our blizzard today. Bye.